This is Joe Deckelmeyer with Screen Rant. We're here with director of Haunted Mansion, Justin Simien. How you doing, sir?
I'm great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Excellent.
First of all, fantastic film. The Haunted Mansion is my favorite ride. It holds a special place in so many people's hearts.
Same.
Can you talk about the process of crafting the story and the aesthetic from the movie to the ride?
Yeah, I mean, look, the story, Katie Dippold figured a lot of things out. That's the screenwriter. And when I got the script, it was just such a surprise. It was a surprising read. I wasn't quite sure how she was going to take us into the mansion, but I loved that she puts us in the shoes of people who are experiencing it for the first time, because that's exactly how you experience it as a ride. I thought that was really smart.
Right.
You know, for me, I love the research part of a movie. It's like my favorite part. And with Haunted Mansion, there's so much there. The Imagineers and Walt Disney, they went through a very interesting process to arrive at the Haunted Mansion. It's been documented. It's right there. So to get my fingers on that stuff, to ride the ride, there was a time when they turned all the lights on and kind of walked us through it, and we literally got to look at each detail and discuss it. Why is that there? And there was always a great story as to why it was there. And so, the job really was like, okay, well, what's the cinematic version of that detail? And how can we use that detail, not just to do fan service, but to actually like tell our story better? And one of the things that was really clear to me right away is that the reason why it's so enduring is that it is a practical effects ride.
Yes.
It's not, it doesn't use, I mean, obviously it was built in 1968, but even the newer iterations of it, they don't rely upon like digital technology. It is actually smoke and actually mirrors. So that's how they do it. And everything has a tactile physical quality to it. And out of that process, I just was like, well, the first thing we got to do, we got to build the mansion. And we got to figure out how to do all of these special effects practically. And obviously we're going to have lots of digital wizardry and fun, but like I want the ghost to be on the set, and I want to really drag Tiffany Haddish out of this house.
Tiffany Haddish is hilarious in this movie.
She's incredible.
How many times did you ride this ride in order to get your research done?
Countless, because here's the thing, when I got the job, I'd already written it like hundreds and hundreds of times. I worked at Disneyland. So, when you work at Disneyland, you get to ride, or at least back in my day, I don't know what it is now, you could ride whatever you wanted to. And I think you got like a ticket and you go through the Fast Pass line. And Haunted Mansion was just one of those rides, like I couldn't get enough of it. I didn't understand what it was at the time. I was working at Disneyland to kind of pay my way through film school, but I knew that there was a relationship between what was happening on that ride and what I was trying to do as a filmmaker. And ultimately, I realized it's the production design, and it is the use of light and sound to kind of guide your eye and tell a story. And I was just obsessed with it. I would ride it over and over again, and just like, how do I do this in my cinema? Like, how do I incorporate this? And so to actually literally be given the chance to it's pretty mind-blowing.
Now, what's something that general audiences wouldn't necessarily know about the Haunted Mansion that you're privy to now that you've explored it so much and researched it so much?
Well, kind of what I was mentioning earlier, like the Imagineers and Walt Disney themselves fought a lot about, should it be scary? Should it be funny? Should it be cute? Should it be musical? These questions of like, what tone is this? It was what they were gripped by, and they landed on something that was really, I think, subversive at the time and continues to be today. It's really deceptively cute, because when you really peel back the layers of that ride, there's some dark stuff going on, there's some dark implications, and there's some real adult humor happening, okay? These ghosts are drunk, first of all, in the graveyard, okay? If you look close, these people are having a real good time. There's a lot going on this ride. And so, some of that, again, it wasn't like I had to figure that out. That was the bar that was set.
Sure.
What we had to do is figure out how to do that as a movie. Absolutely.
Now, the setting of this film takes place in New Orleans, and I feel like New Orleans has an energy like no other city
That's right.
in the United States. Why did you land on that decision? And can you talk to me about how that energy of that city kind of helped with Haunted Mansion?
So my mom's side of the family is from Louisiana. So
my mom lives in Louisiana.
Oh, get out!
Yeah,
wow.
Lake Charles.
Lake Charles. That's where my folks be.
Really?
The Simiens. Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
So I spent a lot of time in Louisiana growing up. A lot of time in Baton Rouge. A lot of time in Lake Charles. A lot of time in a town called Welsh that nobody knows about, where my mom was born and raised. And one thing I was really important to me is that, like, if we do right by New Orleans, we actually do right by the mansion.
Yeah.
Because in New Orleans, like, this is where jazz comes from. And we can go all the way back to the beginning of jazz. We can take a stop with Cab Calloway in the 30s, who, with Louis Armstrong, kind of invented spooky jazz. This is actually where the Mansion's like tone kind of comes from.
Yes.
And New Orleans is a very black town.
Yep.
And the reason why it's so unique is because there was a time in New Orleans that was, you know, unlike any other place in the world, where you had free people of color, you had the Spanish, you had the French, you had indigenous people, you had people who were not mixing and mingling anywhere else, building a society, building wealth, and creating a world in which like hoodoo and Catholicism can coexist. And that's where you get jazz. That's where you get gumbo. That's where you get etouffee. That's why only in New Orleans people like have a street parade when somebody dies. And
Yes.
it's mourning and celebration. And I felt like, well, if we do right by that place, you believe in ghosts and you believe that like joy and sadness and humor and scares all can kind of coexist, because they just do in that city.
What was your favorite ghost that you incorporated from the ride into the film?
Mariner Ghost. I love the Mariner Ghost. I don't know what it is about him. It's the way he is painted. There's an expression on his face that has always kind of like drawn me in. And then I learned a little bit later that like, you know, for like, you know, ships and oceans and the sea it's often used in art as a metaphor for emotion and for feeling and for wading through difficult feelings. And I thought that is really profound. That's exactly what the protagonist of the movie Ben is going through. He is trying to move through some difficult
Yes.
things. And so I couldn't say why before I made the movie, but it oddly feels right. I was always drawn to that character.
That is fantastic. Now, you have such an incredible cast in this movie. We were talking about Tiffany Haddish earlier. She had me dying.
Yeah,
Like and Danny DeVito. Like, come on. You had such a great cast. Can you share any fun stories? Because these are all legends.
Yeah, well, they're all legends. I'll say my favorite story is that Danny DeVito really, first of all, they're all so incredible. They're all so wonderful. And I'm not just saying that because that's the thing you're supposed to say in interviews and stuff. They really are lovely, hardworking, generous people. But what I loved about Danny DeVito is after we'd finish his takes or his scene or whatever, he would just kind of hang out on set with me. He would just sit next to the camera because he's a filmmaker.
Yeah.
This is a real storyteller, and he never intrusive, but just always like kind of like a friendly, you know, voice of encouragement right by my side, you know, watching the movie come together. And he would ask me questions like, oh, are you doing that because of this? And and it was really wonderful, man. It was like I had like a little, you know, guardian angel who looks like Danny DeVito, which is like wild. I would have never thought that that'd be something that would happen for me.
That is incredible. Now, there's so much to the Haunted Mansion and so many details on that ride. Is there anything that you wanted to include but maybe didn't quite fit?
Yeah, there's certainly some paintings that I wanted to highlight more. There are some ghosts that, you know, had some scenes and had some dialogue, and there were some different story threads that we were kind of playing with that just at the end of the day didn't really tell this story as well as we needed to tell it, and so it had to go. But there was a lot, particularly with the Headless Knight and his executioner. Those guys were really fun, and we shot the scene that isn't in the movie, but you know, maybe it'll come out somehow on on a bonus or something. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Blu-ray extras, give it to us. Now, there's a great twist halfway through the movie, and I don't want to give it away, and we want you guys to go watch the movie, but there's a great twist that happens with the ghost motivation. What inspired that twist without giving anything away, because you got to go watch Haunted Mansion?
Wait, which one was the twist? Which twist?
Oh, I can't say.
Well, there's a few twists and turns, aren't there?
Well, more about the ghost like inspiration and motivation in the film.
Oh, okay. All I can say is Katie. When in doubt, Katie Dippold. She came up with it and wrote so many of these things. Are you talking about like what the ghosts are after? Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, oh man, I wish I could talk more explicit. It's really difficult to talk about it, but around it. I'll say that like it was really important to the studio, but it was also kind of important to me, Katie, that the ghosts be both frightening and somehow at some point be folks you want to hang out with
Yes.
and be allies with. You know, it is sort of they are friendly haunts. You know, and so to figure out how these ghosts could operate in both lanes was a big topic of discussion. I think I answered that question well without giving anything away.
And if you want to know more, go watch the movie. I promise you will not be disappointed. Again, you have a tremendous cast, and I want to talk about them a little bit because they do such a phenomenal job in this film, and they play off of each other so well. What did they bring to the film that wasn't necessarily on the page?
Oh man, they bring life to it. You know, it's like it's the most fun about doing an ensemble. And my first film is an ensemble. My series is an ensemble, and I love like when you get people in the roles, them both bringing to life what the intention is on the page, but also bringing something totally out of left field. That is my absolute favorite part of the process. And you know, for some actors, that involves kind of rewording and rewriting and kind of getting it in their voice. Which Owen Wilson, by the way, is like a genius at doing, and like really making it his own, and sort of like knowing what notes he can hit really well. And some of that just happens organically. And then there's some people like Tiffany Haddish. Yes. You know, you just let them go. You just let them go and conjure from the depths, you know, some brilliance, and just sort of help edit and guide it. But like, get out of the way is kind of the trick there. But the thing that I love about an ensemble is everyone has their different notes to play.
Right.
So it's a question of like, when do you want harmony? When do you want melody? When do you want a solo? But they all have a different, distinctive area to play in how the narrative unfolds and how you kind of enjoy the film. Those are so fun for me to work with.
Now, the last question I have for you before we have to wrap up is, I know that you worked at the parks and you did such a great job with Haunted Mansion. Is there any other ride you'd like to bring to life on the screen?
Captain EO, let's go.
Yo!
Listen, I know it's out of commission, okay? I know that's not technically a ride, but I am ready. I need some singing, and I need some dancing, and I need some Jerry Curl juice in outer space immediately. Immediately. Absolutely.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for joining us here and talking about Haunted Mansion. Go check it out in theaters. It is incredible. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Man.
Thank you,
Appreciate
man.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ooh, sneaks are cool, too.
Oh, dude, come on now.